I welcome everyone to the Extensions 101 webinar series. So we are in the day 5 session and the final session of a 5-day series on building extensions for Zoho Finance suite applications. So this series aims at introducing the components available in the Zoho Books developer platform for building extensions for Zoho Books and help you understand how to use each and every component that is available in the Zoho Books developer platform while building extensions with sample example use cases. So once again, I am Vinod and I am from the Zoho Marketplace team. Along with me, we also have Lavanya from the Marketplace team and Swarna and Kishore from the Zoho Finance team. So at any point in time during this session, if you have any queries, please post them in the chat window and we'll address them. Let's get started now. Before we get into today's session, let's see a quick recap on our earlier sessions. So in our day 1 session, we introduced the 7 different Zoho products that comprises the Zoho Finance suite. Then we introduced what extensions are and how they are useful. After that, we introduced the Sigma platform, which is exclusively meant for building these extensions for any of the Zoho products. Finally, we introduced the Zoho Books developer platform and explained all the components available within the platform for building extensions for Zoho Books. And in our day 2 session, we covered one of the important components available in the Zoho Books developer platform, which is connections. So the connections helps in creating a secured communication for extensions between the Zoho Books and the services on the other end. In the session, we went ahead with creating an extension for Zoho Books and explained how to create connections while building extensions for Zoho Books. Our third session was on widgets. So widgets are customizable UI elements that can be embedded as part of the Zoho Books product, providing an interactive interface to the users. And in the later part of the session, we introduced a use case wherein a widget would be required, and we explained the complete process of creating a widget and embedding it to the extension. Finally, in our day 4 session, we introduced configuration components like global fields and install actions. So the global fields helps us to create configurations which can be accessed from anywhere within the extension. And with install actions, we can create customizations to occur on installation or uninstallation of the extension. Finally, with an example use case, we demonstrated how to create global fields and install actions as part of the extension building process. Now, let's get into today's session. So over the past 4 sessions, we have almost covered all the components available in the Zoho Books developer platform for building extensions for Zoho Books. So in today's session, we'll introduce the best practices that a developer should follow while building an extension for Zoho Books. So in today's session, we'll see we'll first see the processes that are common for any extension that you build for Zoho Books. After that, we'll see the practices that are specific for components like connections, custom scripts, and global fields, one after the other. So whenever you are creating an extension for Zoho Books and make it available to users, so once the user install the extension, all the components that you have added as part of the extension will be added to their Zoho Books account. So we should make sure that no unwanted or unused components are added as part of the extension that you are presenting to the users. So the first step, practice is to make sure that no unwanted or unused components are available in your extension. Then you are allowed to create custom fields in any module available in Zoho Books. So make sure that you create not more than 5 custom fields in any module of Zoho Books while building your extension. Then in any extension, you can configure some create some configurations to collect data while installing the extension, or create customizations that should occur in the Zoho Books product automatically while installing or uninstalling the extension. So these configurations or customizations can be added for any of the extension that you are building for Zoho Books. So make sure if you are collecting any data while installing the extension from the users, you collect only the required data from the users, and no unnecessary data or additional data that is irrelevant to your extension is being fetched from the users. Also, if you wish to create configure any actions to be performed, like creating a custom field or creating a custom module while installing the extension, make sure you create only the required actions to be performed or on installation or uninstallation of the extension. So these are the 3 common guidelines which we have to follow in each and every extension that we build for Zoho Books. Next, we'll see the the guidelines or the principles to be followed specifically for each and every component. So next, we'll move on to the guidelines to be followed while creating connections in any extension for Zoho Books. Okay. So whenever you are creating a connection, you need to define the scopes for that particular connection. So while defining the scopes, make sure you provide only the necessary scopes required for that particular connection, and no additional scopes are added as part of the connection. Then while creating the connection, you will be asked to provide a connection name for that particular connection. So make sure you provide the name in Pascal case, that is first the product name, which is Zoho Books, followed by a hyphen, and followed by the service with which you are going to connect using the extension. So for example, I have provided Twilio over here. So in this way, you can follow the Pascal case to provide a name for the connection that you are creating. Then, if in case while creating the connection, you're creating a connection between Zoho Books and a service that follows OAuth2 as the authentication type, you will be asked to create, provide certain parameters like authorization URL, refresh token URL. Based on the service, it will vary. So while providing the authorized URL, this URL can be constructed based on the information available in the API documentation of the service with which you are connecting. Say, for example, you are connecting Zoho Books with Twilio, and if in case Twilio follows OAuth2 as their authentication mechanism, then in the API documentation of Twilio, you will be provided with the guidelines to create the authorized URL. So following the steps given in their API documentation, you can create the authorized URL and provide it in the connections creation section. Okay, as part of the authorized URL, you need to give this particular key, that is access type equals offline. So this helps. This key helps in accessing the data from the service on the other end, even if this user is offline or signed up. Okay, and finally, while installing the extension, if you want every user, even from the same organization, to authorize the extension, then you need to toggle the use credentials of login user option, so that the connection will ask every user who is installing the extension to authorize first to access the extension. So these are the main uh, you know uh, four principles that should be followed while creating a connection for any extension that you are following. So to get a better picture on this, let's get into the Zoho Books developer platform, where we will create connections for an extension, and I'll show you where each of these fields will be applicable. Okay, so for that, I'll get into Sigma. So whenever we need to create an extension, we'll first need to get into Sigma to create a new extension. Okay, so after providing the details asked over here and choosing the service as books, and once we click on create, the extension will be created as listed over here. Okay, so the steps to create an extension in Sigma is already covered in our earlier sessions, and as mentioned, you can refer those videos to learn on how to create extensions in Sigma. So as I have already created, I'll just get into an extension. Once we get into the build section, you could see the connections component is available in the left panel. So once we click on that, um, we can create two different types of connections. One is predefined connections and the custom connections. If we get into any one of them, so now we are in the Zoho Books connections section. Okay, so while discussing about the guidelines, the first step is we need to add only the necessary scopes, right? So here you will be find multiple scopes available over here. Based on our use case requirements, we need to choose only the scopes required for our case and proceed with the connection. Then I mentioned about the connection name, right? So here in the connection name, we need to follow the Pascal case as shown in the example. And um, third point is, if we want every user to authorize the extension, while installing the extension, then you need to toggle this use credentials of login user option, so that every user from even from a same organization accessing the extension will have to authorize with their credentials to access the extension. Okay, and one more point we have discussed while creating custom connections. See, if the authentication type is OAuth2, you will be asked to provide the authorized URL. So all these the steps to create the authorized URL will be provided as part of the API documentation of the service on the other end. Okay, so after creating the authorized URL as specified in the API documentation, as we mentioned, we need to provide the key called access type equal to offline, so that the data can be accessed from the service on the other end, even if the user is signed off or offline. So these are the four important steps to be noted while creating connections for any extension in Zoho Books. So I'll move on to the next component, which is custom scripts. In our previous sessions, we have demonstrated that we have will be provided with a deluge script in the Zoho Books developer platform to create our customizations required for our extension. Okay, if in case you create an extension and for Zoho Books, and the same extension will be used for other services as well, like Zoho Inventory or Zoho Billing, you can do so by using invoke URL in your customization instead of the SDK method specific for the particular product. Say if you are building an extension for Zoho Books, and if the same extension has to be published for Zoho Inventory, in that case, instead of using the Zoho Books SDK methods to handle the data, you can go with the invoke URL option, so that the same code can be reused for the extension that you will be creating for Zoho Inventory as well. Okay, so while creating the invoke URL, you should be providing the API root endpoint, which is going to be the base URL for every request method that you will be triggering or invoking from your extension. So the API root endpoint is going to be a mandatory parameter in every invoke URL that you will be handling in your extension. Finally, while handling your extensions logic, if in case you want to refer to any of the custom field or any default fields available in your Zoho Books product, in that case you will be you should be using the API field name of that particular field instead of the label name. So for every field that is available in the Zoho Books product, you will be having the label name which is transparent, and the API field name will be available within the platform. So in order to refer to any fields, you should be using only the API field name and not the label name. So again, once again, to understand all these points better, let us get into the platform once again and see where we can use this information. For that, I'll get into the developer platform once again. And if I get into any module that is available over here, so you could see we can have an option to create custom fields over here. So I'll just go ahead and create a custom field. Here it is asking us for a label name, and we need to choose a data type. So I click on save. So here you could see the custom field that we have created has been listed over here. And once we get into the field, you could see the API field name has been automatically generated. So in this way, for any field that is available within the Zoho Books product, an API field name will be automatically generated, and wherever you want to refer this particular field, you should be referring only with the API field name in your logics or code, and not the label name. Okay. If you want to create any automations, I'll provide a name and choose a module over here. So say for example, if you want to create perform any operations within the estimate module, and you want to handle your customizations or logics, you will be provided with a deluge editor, wherein you can handle all your logics or customizations with ease. So here, as you can see over here, it has automatically fetched the estimate module information, the organization information, user information, and the global fields information as well. So this makes the work of a developer easy by getting all the necessary information for this particular module, and make it readily available in the Deluge editor itself. So all you have to do is like use the information available over here and perform your customizations or logics. So within organization, you could see the API root endpoint is available. So while creating your customization, I mentioned that in every invoke URL, you should be having the API root endpoint as the base URL, right? So you can just copy it from here, add it to your logics, so that uh, based on the environment that you are working on, be it a test environment or be it a production environment, based on the environment, this API root endpoint will be automatically identified and gets replaced in your logics that you are creating for your extension. Okay, so this is with respect to the custom scripts that you're creating for your particular extension. Now I'll move back to my presentation, and we'll move to the next component, which is global fields. So whenever you are creating any global field in your extension, so basically the global fields are used to get information from the users, which can be utilized across the extension. Say for example, if you want to get API keys or API tokens from the users as part of the authentication, those information can be obtained using the global fields, so that it can be used wherever required within the extension. Okay, so if you want to use the values that we obtain using the global fields within your customization, then you need to check this allow use of global fields in this custom function option, so that whatever the values available in the global fields will be made available to the customization that you will be creating for your extension. Then while creating a global field, if you are defining a global field data type as users or roles, then there will be a field called is mandatory. You should be making it the true to this particular parameter, so that the global field will become mandatory for every extension, and the users or the roles defined in that particular global field will be notified by the extension. So let's see how these two parameters can be configured within the extension. So for that, I'm getting into Zoho Books again, and here you can see if we have a global field created, all we have to do is just check this option, so that the global fields that we created as part of this extension can be accessed over here, which can be handled within your customization as well. And in the same way, while creating a global field, so in order to create global fields, we need to get into the configure section, and whenever we create a new global field, as defined over here, if we choose the data type as users or roles and make it as a mandatory, then the notifications will be sent to the users related to the extension. So let me go back to my presentation. So these are all the common steps to be followed while creating any extension for Zoho Books. Okay, once the extension has been created, it can be tested in this sandbox environment available within the Zoho Books itself. So once the extension has been constructed and tested successfully in the sandbox environment, then you can go ahead and publish the extension using the publish section. So once the finance team approves the extension, your extension will be ready to use privately, and in that case, you will be provided with the private installation URL. So any user within your organization or whoever the user whom you want to use the extension, um, have access to that installation URL, can go ahead, install the extension and start using that. Instead, if you want to publish the extension in Zoho Marketplace, again, it has to be submitted for Zoho Marketplace approval process, wherein the extension will again be undergone for the standards as mentioned by the product. And once all the security checks and the standards have been validated, then the extension will be published in Zoho Marketplace as a public extension. So this is how the publishing process of an extension happens. And based on your requirements, you can have your extension as a private or a public extension in Zoho Marketplace. So now let's get into the next topic, which is the different development approaches one can follow for building an extension for Zoho Books. So far in this particular 5 sessions of this series, we have covered the approach of building extensions using Sigma and the Zoho Books developer platform. Okay, so let me reiterate the steps. In order to create an extension in this particular approach, we need to create an extension in Sigma, which will take us to Zoho Books developer platform. Once we get into developer platform, we'll have a build section where we'll find different components for creating or building our extension. After that, if we have need to add any user specific configurations, that can be added under the configure section. So we have 2 different sections. One is the build section and the configure section. So using those sections, you can build your extension and test it using the sandbox environment there itself. And once that extension is tested and you find the extension is ready, then it can be published using the publish section, which will undergo 2 different review process. And once the review process is successful, your extension will be published privately or publicly in Zoho Marketplace. So this is how an extension can be built and published using this platform approach, which is Sigma approach. If in case you have your own development environment for building extensions and you don't have to depend on the Sigma platform for building your extensions, in that case you can build an API integration as well. So in that case, all you have to do is you will be provided with the APIs for all the fields and modules of Zoho Books in the APIs API documentation of Zoho Books. So you can use those APIs, construct your extension in your particular development environment and publish the extension in Zoho Marketplace directly. And once the Marketplace approval team validates your extension and finds it successful, that particular extension will be published in Zoho Marketplace with a button visit website. Okay, you will not be having an having a button called install. In that API integration case, you will find a button called visit website, wherein the users can directly click on that button and will be taken into your product or platform to use the particular extension. So these are 2 different approaches or methods with which you can create extension for Zoho Books. In most of the time, we prefer you to use the Sigma platform for building extensions, because it is it provides very convenient ways to create extensions. And most of the process will be simplified using the deluge editor and the automated processes, so that handling all the customizations on your end will be reduced and your efforts will be minimized while using the Sigma developer platform.